Okay, today we're going to be working on the RV, putting on some mud flaps. These are the OEM mud flaps for the E350. So again, it's similar to some of the Super Duty trucks as well as the vans. And so I've set everything up here so that we have everything that they kind of indicated in there that you're going to need. So I have my drill, my 7/32 drill bit, got something to wash with, I got level, I got the package came with the 2 mud flaps, the instructions. This is the CL3Z-16A550-K, which is the chrome emblem plates, so it's going to come out really nice on there. They do make ones that have the subdued black, and I just thought for the chrome on the RV, I'd just go ahead and kind of match it to that. And so we're going to put this together. I'm going to try and videotape each of the steps according to what they have, and then I think the only thing I'm not going to have is I don't usually have a torque wrench or whatever paint they think they need to kind of touch up or whatever they need. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up the area, and that's what the bucket of soap is for, and that's kind of where we're at right here. And again, we'll try and get each part as we go along. Kind of a good point for me to stop. Been cleaning, trying to get some of this road dirt off, and some of it will wipe off, and it'll go away with some scrubbing. Other parts of it just not going to come off, and I can't see if you can tell, but some of that is just not just road dirt, but it's also damage to the vehicle. And this vehicle was just recently repainted in the last year. Part of the reason we're getting the mud flaps is because these new tires on here, they get a lot of rocks in them. And we tend to go on some gravel roads and some dirt roads. And so they throw a lot of rocks up, and they're hitting the side, the door, going back toward the RV. So that is one of the reasons we are putting the mud flaps on. And as I'm scrubbing, I can see just the damage that's going on from just the chip paint and everything else. And so again, I would recommend, especially if you're somebody who goes any off-road at all, even just gravel road or something like that, mud flaps will just be a good idea, just to protect your car from just all kinds of damage. And then it's just hard to clean up this stuff. It'll at least minimize some of the road dirt that you get on there. All right, the next step is to kind of measure it and to mark it. So what we have here is, they said not to have it go more than 8.7 from the bottom. So I'm going to mark this about between the 8.5 and the 8 3/4, and then just hold it there, and then I'm going to just mark it. We're at this step where we're going to remove the 8mm bolt. Just a heads up, I'm working on the opposite side, so it's showing the reverse of it. On that one, they're working on the passenger side. I'm on the driver's side just because it's shadier on this side. So we're just removing the first 8mm bolt on this side, and that's it. All right, a couple things to note. We're taking out this screw, and apparently that should also mention the other screw that I just took out, the bolt right below it, is actually going to get thrown away. So this one is going to get thrown away. When I pulled this out, it came loose, and all this junk came flying out of it. So I don't know if I'm going to add this as something to kind of check on and clean out once in a while, but that's kind of interesting. The other thing I found out as doing this, just a note, I found it was easier to turn the wheel in, a little more space, and I didn't do it, but just a reminder, maybe want to put your mirror in just so you don't hit your head. Add one more thing. When I took the screw out of here, I could look back there a little bit more, so just be aware. This, I guess, apparently collects the gutter from up in the engine, anything that kind of falls down and comes in here, and kind of freaked me out. There was a giant dead bugs in there, so so just be aware when you lift that out. You might be surprised by what you find back there. I'm gonna have to re-clean this area because it's really dirty back there. All right, some real quick notes. I was using the wrong pictures, but it's the same essentially on both sides. The screw I just took out here is going to get thrown away. We're just going to use the new ones when we put it together. So the next step was to kind of mark the 4 areas. This you're going to keep the original, so mark 3 areas, and then you're going to drill it out with the 7/32. So what I did was kind of put the after I cleaned everything out, I didn't want to. Sometimes these clips don't go far enough, so I just pushed them all the way to the edge and put them all in where I wanted them to be, and then I used this original hole as a guide to make sure that everything was going to fit in place, and then marked it. So I tried to use my pencil, but you can see my pencil is very light green, so I can't really see what one it is. So what I used is just, once I've got these where I want them to be, I just used a razor to kind of clarify where everything was. So that's where we're at now. All right, so we've moved the clips with my 7/32. We've drilled all our holes, and they're all lined up, and it says to put those in and then to put the screws in. So that's the next step. Step is to put in just the top screw, and then we're going to push on it. If you read the instruction, it says you're just going to push on it so you can create a dimple on it, and on that dimple we're going to drill the hole and mark it. So that's their kind of cheat way of getting the mud flap lined up. You're just going to push it really hard against each one of the screws when you put it in. So you're going to put the screw in without attaching it to the mud flap. And the same thing here. You're just going to push against it really hard. And as you push against it really hard, you're going to make sure it's level. And then once you get your little dimples, then you're going to drill your holes and attach it. All right, to get my dimple, what I ended up doing was re-putting that screw back in that we're going to throw away so that it can hold it when I push pressure against it. So I put this in just so that it's just about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/2 inch sticking out, so that I can push against it, because it's going to go back. And I kind of put it so it's like a little bit over the lip. The other thing is I was worried about when I line up the rest of the holes that it may not match because this fender was coming out. So I just took my vice grips and just kind of got some plastic and just kind of put it on there, and then just put the big old to clamp it. I was going to put the screw back in, but I didn't want to spend that much time, so I used the screw just to kind of line up the hole, and then I clamped it, and then this way I can push on there, get my dimple. I don't know if you can see the dimple on it already. It is kind of moved around a little bit, but there's basically where it is. All right, so in trying to create my dimples, again, I left that original screw in there to kind of hold things steady. And then the next thing was I pushed on it, got my little marks where I am. I kind of used the screwdriver to also kind of add to the dimple as well. This one, I found out I was way off up here, and the reason for that was the inner well kept sliding, and I wasn't aware of that. So as I was pushing, it pushed things off. So make sure you double check before you do that drill mark. All right, so we got my drill holes all lined up. One thing I forgot to mention too is I kind of marked right here where to line it up with where my level was. So whenever I lost the movement or something like that, I could just kind of match it with where that was. And then as I'm pushing, I could get those dimples a little bit better. So that's how that works. All right, so we got the screws all put in. When you're putting them in, you don't want to tighten them too much because you're going to strip them. They're only going into those clips that we put in the back. So just be careful with that. One other thing is on the one that had the tab on it, the metal tab, I kind of shortcutted and was using the old tab and going through, and there's not much difference between the old tab and the new tab, but it did strip one of the bolts. So I don't know if the metal was stronger in the old clips compared to the old screw and everything, but so just like I said, just use the new clips because maybe they're a softer metal and they'll work out a little bit better. All right, so we're installing the brackets down here, and so the bracket's gonna go in. I already put it in on the back side. I'll pull the camera back there in a second, and it goes between the clip. So you got this goes there, then you're gonna put in the clip, and then the clip is actually going to hold on to the back of the thing, so it's going to slide between the two areas, and so push it through there, and then also clamping on the back metal back here. And so in looking at the instructions and everything else, what we see here is that the other thing on that is in putting that clamp on the back. So this is looking from the inside of the well looking out. So it's going to be mounted there, and then you're going to re-screw in the bolt, which is right here. And like I said, you're going to drill a hole and everything in there so that you can have everything. Now, the PM13 that they're talking about is actually an anti-corrosive paint thing to keep it from corrosion. I don't have any of that, but one thing I did notice too is that on my clamp that they gave us for this installation is a lot shorter than the one that is included here. You can see that kind of goes only that far, but the other clamp has a hole that goes a lot further up. So I'm using the old clamp because it is coated with that PM13, and I'm going to, so the clamp is already there. Let's see if we can move the camera around and see the back side here, and you can see where the clamp is. I have it mounted in between there, and we're just going to drill that hole and finish up. All right, so if you can see there, we got the hole drilled out. One thing I would just point out is it's a very awkward angle in trying to get in there, especially when you've already mounted the mud flap already. So just be aware. I ended up having to just pull off the frame thing and then to get in there to drill the hole, because I guess the other option would be to leave it up there and then from the back side kind of push a smaller pin through the back of the bracket so that you can line it up a little bit better, and then push it through and then just drill from this side. But yeah, anyway, it worked for me just to kind of take this off and pull it out and drill it. All right, so that's where the clip goes on the back of there, and again, just from the back side, that's where how it mounts. And then we're just gonna bring the hole up, secure everything, and then we're done. All right, so we are all done. It is all mounted on there, and you can see that looks really good as far as how it came out. When I had the wheel turn, my wife kind of noted that it looked like it was close, but now that you can see that the wheels turn straight, you can see that there's plenty of room, and again, it's going to protect pretty good from all the stuff going on with that. The only thing I would just add in this is just again, just some notes. If you're doing the Super Duty, you need the 5.5 to remove one of the inner well, the initial bolt that's on the inside. On the van, you just use a Phillips screwdriver to remove it, and there's only one for on the van. So on the front, you're just using a Phillips here, and then but on the Super Duties, what you're doing is you actually have two of them, a lower one and an upper one, and those are a 5.5 millimeter. So for the van, all we needed was the just the 7mm, 8mm, and everything else was pretty much the same, except, like I said, now there is, you can use this to install for rear. I'm assuming this is only for the single axle. I noticed that it's, and you can also use it for the transit van, so it should be pretty similar all the way around. Maybe some differences like in the road clearance, how much the difference is and everything else. But like I said, it looks like it's rear for the van, for the E-Series, rear for the transit van, and it's only front for the Super Duty. So, all right, that should be about it. It came out pretty good. Like I said, it took a little bit of time. Now all I have to do is finish up the front, the other side, and we'll be all done. All right, just a quick note about extra parts left over, just because sometimes I get picked on for extra parts. So these are the extra clips and the bolt, and these were to replace this one, but I kept the originals because, like I said, originally this one is longer. This didn't actually match too well, even though it has kind of it didn't match the color, but it did have a wider washer. I would have kept that if I could, and they weren't coated with that PM13 anti-corrosive, which the other one was. So the other ones, these are the actual old parts they are told to get rid of. They were the parts, the original screw up here, and what I ended up doing was, when I was replacing them, this one I was trying to reuse, but what ended up happening was that it stripped the new screw that went in. So I think it's a harder metal, so I just went ahead and replaced it, and this one, just because it matches a little bit better and keep the same. So those are my extra parts.